were different from the process by the European Union, but none of them have tried to do it democratically. The EU is doing it by stealth, and whenever there are referendums, it ignores the result. So the French voted on the Constitution, it was brought back as the Lisbon Treaty. The Irish voted against the Lisbon Treaty, they're made to vote against. The Greeks vote against austerity, their finance minister is fired by the EU. So the EU holds democracy in contempt and is doing it by stealth, whereas Hitler, Napoleon, Louis XIV and Philip II were all doing it by military means.
But let's just look at this issue of democracy within the European Union and the threat posed by it. My honourable friend from St Peter's has already told you about the scandalous Irish experience, where if the people give a wrong result, they have to get to vote again until they give the right result. That happened in Denmark as well, and it happened in Holland, and it happened in France. Though in the case of Holland and France, what did they do? They changed the constitutional treaty into the Lisbon Treaty, and then didn't allow anyone to vote at all. So you just push it through, because if the electorate don't like it, well, you try and get another electorate who may like it.
You are either in the European Union or you leave it. And this is... This is not only my view, this is the view of Donald Tusk, one of the presidents of the European Union, who said there is no such thing as hard and soft Brexit, there is being in the European Union or out. And if we're out of the European Union, we cannot have our laws determined by the European Court of Justice. We cannot have all our regulations set by being in the internal market. And we can't lose all our trading opportunities by being in the customs union. And this was clear at the election. I brought a quotation, in case this came up, from Wolfgang Schäuble, a very senior German politician. And he let the cat out of the bag after the referendum, because he said he'd been asked to say this by one George Osborne, the then Chancellor. And he said, if the majority in Britain opt for Brexit, that would be a decision against the single market. In is in, out is out. We knew what we were voting for. We voted, and democracy must deliver. He talked about the common fisheries policy. This is the first time I've ever heard anybody tell our bankrupted fishermen who have been put out of business by the European Union that it's good for them because they can go and fish in Spain. No, it's not good for them because they can go and fish in Spain. It's bad for them because we used to have the greatest fish resources in our territorial waters, which have been taken by industrial Spanish fishing. So we have bankrupted our fishermen, not given them this great hope. You're absolutely right. I'm just going to reinforce his points. It's such an exciting opportunity, and the opportunity is through leaving the customs union so we can trade freely with the rest of the world, and that means we have to come out of the single market, which is the force of regulating us. And the problem with the single market is that means we are effectively in the European Union. And so when Remainers say they want to stay in the single market, that is code for saying they don't like the referendum result. So if we're really leaving, we have to be out of the single market. And the point you make, sir, on trade is absolutely spot on. We have a deficit with the rest of the European Union of between 80 and 100 billion pounds a year. We are the major customer for the European Union of any country in the world. Whilst we're still in the EU, the biggest customer is the US. Once we're out, it will be us. Over 200,000 economic migrants came from the European Union in the period for which we've got figures. And yet the propaganda sheet sent out to the British people claims we maintain control of our borders. Have we withdrawn from the free movement of people, or is that sheet simply untrue?
Investors, but what about common people? What about the farmers, for instance, in your home district? No more common agricultural policy for them. They're not going to see the money.
Oh yes, we can subsidise farmers on our own. Of course we can. We paid farmers long before we joined the European Union. The 1947 Agricultural Subsidies Act gave money to farmers for decades before we joined the European Union, and we can remove the bureaucracy. And we don't, I'm sorry to say, have to subsidise your farmers anymore, which has been quite a big cost to the British taxpayer.
Do you still think it is right to use the fate of EU nationals here as bargaining chips?
I have always been in favour of EU nationals being told that they can stay.
Yes.
And actually I think that is technically the position, because the Great Repeal Bill will maintain all the current rights
of EU nationals. I think everyone will stay and they should not worry. The Home Office can barely deport 5 criminals at the end of their sentences. The idea that it can deport 3 million people is bonkers, and people should know that it won't happen. The point is that there have been a number of efforts since the collapse of the Roman Empire to create a single unified Europe run from the continent. And the EU is part of that historic tradition, but it's unquestionably using different means. I wouldn't begin to question what Lord Bramall is saying.
I mean, were you surprised by the tone of Mr. Carney's comments?
What really surprises me is that the Governor of the Bank of England has been making assertions and speculations rather than sticking to facts. In the letter he has sent to the Treasury Select Committee, he talks about the EU contributing to the dynamism of the British economy. This is a party political opinion. This is not a fact. Many people would argue the precise reverse, that it's the dead hand of the EU that has stopped our economy doing better. And it is improper for the Governor of the Bank of England, with all the authority of the bank behind him, to make speculative party political points. He needs to stick to the facts and what the true role of the bank is. We could have an immigration policy that makes it easy for senior executives to come in and go, or we could have a lunatic one that stops them coming in. But that's got nothing to do with being in the European Union. Indeed, we could have a better one because we could have the same for Americans and Australians and Indians as we have for Belgians and Romanians and Bulgarians. And that would be our choice. It would be nothing to do with the EU. And we can deal with inflation because we have very high tariffs on food and on clothing and on footwear.
So the word hard Brexit doesn't actually mean anything to you?
Hard Brexit is a term used by people who don't want us to leave the European Union and regret the result. And they pretend that there is a soft Brexit. And then I think the most scandalous is the European Court, because the rule of law is essential to any understanding of democracy. It is the platform, the foundation that democracy is built upon. And the European Court has very serious flaws. First of all, it is a political court, that it is committed to pushing the federalist, integrationist agenda without the support of the people. 1 minute it is delay, and you have honourable gentlemen officers and honourable ladies, some even on this side, saying we're doing it too fast, we should slow down, we should be a bit more cautious, because it would be so dangerous to do what the British people asked us to do at the pace at which they expected us to do it. Surely that's not wise. So they delay it through applications to the court, and then they come to Parliament. Oh, how wonderful, the joy that suddenly so many members are in favour of parliamentary scrutiny. Governments, democratically elected, have been thrown out in Greece as well. They have been thrown out in Italy by the fiat of unelected bankers at the European Central Bank and Commission members at the European Commission. This is a real assault on democracy, because it means that what the electorate wants is overruled by the commissioners.
You are taking people for fools if you are claiming that it is just simply a binary decision and it's not going to have any impact on our economy, because it is already.
This is terminological inexactitude. The truth is that if we still have our laws determined by the European Court of Justice, then our Parliament is no longer able to make all our laws, and the votes of the British people do not count, because our laws are made and interpreted by a foreign court.
We're under the ECJ now and we make laws.
We are under the ECJ now and we voted to leave.
Nonsense.
We cannot allow our law to be overturned by Brussels if we have left the European Union. It is not only a binary decision, it is a most obviously binary one. Who your judges are, who interprets your law, is fundamental to whether you are an independent nation or not. As Mr. Leonard, you said, we need to be looking at the world. The next 100 years is not going to be about a sclerotic, failing European Union. It's going to be about China and India and Brazil.
We've heard from a couple
and that's our opportunity. But the fundamental problem, the real issue at hand tonight, is that there is less democracy in this country because of the European Union. Because, ladies and gentlemen, however you vote at the next general election, 60% of our laws, and some say higher, is made on the basis of European agreements where the Maltese proportionately outvote us 15-1.
Whoever you vote for matters less than whoever somebody in Malta votes for about the laws of our country. And if you're unsatisfied with that, if you want it changed, I can't give you any redress because the United Kingdom Parliament, the most ancient democratic parliament in the world, has been made powerless. That is the threat to democracy. It is here, but it is on the continent as well. It is a frightening spectre. The best way to deal with it is to deal with our relationship with the European Union, to put our own democracy first and foremost, and hope that others follow.